The war had lasted 3 years and humanity had lost. Every battle, every strategy, every desperate attempt to push back the Empire had failed. Their ships were faster, their weapons stronger, and their soldiers seemed to never tire. Earth's military commanders sat in underground bunkers, staring at maps that showed nothing but retreat and defeat. Then the High Council sent their terms: surrender completely or watch every human city burn from orbit. They gave Earth 1 week to decide. Ambassador was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, negotiating trade deals and peace treaties, but she had never faced anything like this. The council chambers on Earth were full of shouting generals and crying politicians. Everyone knew the truth. They had no choice but to surrender. But proposed something different. She stood before the Earth Assembly and said they should offer a marriage alliance instead. One human would marry into the royal family. It was an old tradition, one that even the might respect. It would bind the two species together and maybe, just maybe, save humanity from total destruction. The assembly argued for 2 days. Some called it cowardice. Others called it slavery with a ceremonial dress. But in the end, they had no better options. Sent the proposal to the High Council. The answer came back within hours. They accepted. Princess received the news aboard her flagship, the Eternal Talon. She was in the training room, practicing combat techniques against 3 holographic opponents. Her officers knew better than to interrupt her during training, but this message came directly from the Imperial Palace. She had no choice but to stop. Read the orders twice. She would marry a human representative to formalize Earth's surrender. The wedding would be broadcast across 1,000 worlds as proof of dominance. She would be the symbol of their victory. She wanted to refuse, was third in line to the throne, a decorated fleet commander who had led 17 successful campaigns. She had earned her position through blood and skill, not politics, but refusing a direct order from the Imperial Palace meant execution. So she sent back a single word: confirmed. Her second-in-command found her later in the observation deck. He was a veteran soldier with scars across his jaw and a reputation for brutal honesty. "They say the human arrives tomorrow," he said. Did not turn from the window. "I know. Do you want me to arrange an accident? Ship malfunctions happen all the time." She almost smiled. "No, the treaty is signed. We follow orders." Even when the orders are insults. Finally looked at him. "Especially then, that is what separates us from chaos." The human arrived on a small diplomatic shuttle, watched from the bridge as it docked. She expected someone important, a general, perhaps, or a wealthy politician. Someone who would strut and posture and try to pretend this was anything other than submission. Instead, they brought her. He was ordinary. That was the first thing she noticed. Average height, average build, dark hair cut short and simple. He wore plain gray clothes that looked comfortable but cheap. When he walked into the ceremonial hall where they would meet for the first time, he did not swagger or bow too deeply. He simply walked forward and stopped at the appropriate distance. "Princess," he said. His voice was quiet and calm. "You are the human representative." She could not keep the disappointment from her voice. "I am." "What is your rank, your position?" "I have none. I am a civilian liaison." Felt anger rise in her chest. This was what Earth sent. This nobody. It was an insult worse than any battle, but she controlled herself. "Very well. The ceremony is in 3 days. You will be given quarters near mine. Do not embarrass me." "I will try not to," said. For 3 days barely saw him. He stayed in his quarters or wandered the ship's public areas. Several times, officers reported seeing him in strange places. Once in the engine room, talking with maintenance crews. Once in the medical bay, helping organize supplies. Once in the lower decks, playing a card game with junior soldiers. Brought these reports to with a puzzled expression. The human is everywhere, but he does nothing suspicious. He just talks to people. Maybe he is a spy, suggested. A terrible one. He asks no questions about weapons or defenses. He mostly talks about food and gardens. The wedding ceremony was held in the main hangar, converted into a grand hall with banners from both worlds. Cameras transmitted the event across the galaxy. Millions watched as Princess, wearing her formal military armor with ceremonial decorations, stood beside in his simple Earth formal wear. The officiant spoke the traditional words, asked them both to pledge loyalty to peace between their peoples, spoke her vows with a strong, clear voice. She had memorized them and delivered them perfectly. When it was turn, he paused. Then he said simply, "I will protect what matters." The officiant seemed confused by the brief response, but nodded. By the laws of both species, they were now married. Afterward, there was a formal reception. Nobles stood on one side, human diplomats on the other. Everyone was polite but cold, stood beside and accepted congratulations that felt like mockery. Through it all, remained quiet and calm. He did not try to make conversation. He did not complain. When it was finally over, they returned to her quarters, had arranged for separate sleeping areas. She made her expectations clear immediately. "This is a political arrangement," she said. "You will have access to these rooms, but you will not interfere with my duties. I command this ship and this fleet. You are a symbol, nothing more. Do you understand?" "I understand," said. "Good. You may go about your business during the day, but stay out of restricted areas. My officers will watch you." "That is fair." His easy acceptance irritated her somehow. "Do you have nothing to say? No complaints? No demands?" Looked at her with those calm eyes. "You are angry at circumstances beyond both our control. I will not make that worse by being difficult." Wanted to argue, but found no words. She dismissed him and went to bed feeling strangely defeated. The weeks that followed established a pattern, commanded her fleet, led training exercises, and prepared for their next deployment. Existed in the background of her life. He tended a small garden he had started in the hydroponics bay. He read books on a simple tablet. He occasionally watched military drills from the public observation decks. Her officers continued to mock him. The human ornament, they called him, the princess's pet, did not stop them. Let them have their jokes. It changed nothing. But she noticed things, small things. When a young engineer struggled with a complex repair, happened to be nearby and suggested a solution that worked. When a soldier panicked before her first combat drop, talked to her quietly in a corner, and she walked away calmer. He moved through her ship like he belonged there, but never demanded recognition. 3 months after the wedding, pirates attacked a supply convoy in a nearby system. It was a minor threat, barely worth the flagship's attention, but decided to respond personally as a show of force. She brought the Eternal Talon and its escort ships to the location. Stood in the observation deck during the battle, watching as fighters swarmed the pirate vessels. A nervous junior officer stood beside him, monitoring the engagement. "Are you frightened?" the officer asked, trying to sound casual. Shook his head slowly. "Not yet." "What do you mean, not yet?" "They have not given me a reason to be frightened," said simply. The officer laughed, thinking it was a joke, but something in his tone made him glance over. The human was watching the battle with an expression that was not quite boredom, but not quite interest either. More like evaluation, like someone watching pieces move on a game board. The pirates were destroyed within minutes, returned to the bridge satisfied with the quick victory. When she passed in the corridor later, he nodded politely. "Effective response time," he said. She paused. "You understand military tactics?" "A little," he said, and walked away before she could ask more questions. That night pulled his file again. She had read it a dozen times but found nothing useful. Birth records, education, civilian work history. But there was something strange. His records only went back to age 25. Before that, nothing, as if he had not existed. She told herself it did not matter, he was harmless, a symbol, nothing more. But she could not shake the feeling that she was missing something important. The peace lasted 6 months, then everything changed. The collective had been quiet during the war between the Empire and humanity. They watched from their borders, building their forces, waiting for the right moment. Now they struck. Their attack was massive and coordinated. 50 systems along the border went dark in a single day. Distress signals flooded in from colonies and military outposts. They were not just raiding, they were invading with intent to conquer. The High Council called an emergency session. Every fleet commander received deployment orders, stood on the bridge of the Eternal Talon as the orders came through. She was given command of the Third Fleet and assigned to retake the Outer Rim territories. It was the most dangerous assignment, the one with the highest expected casualties. She accepted without hesitation. Stood beside her as they prepared the fleet for departure. 12 battle groups, he said, reviewing the roster. 60 capital ships, 300 support vessels should be enough. Should be, agreed. But reports from the front were troubling. They were using strange tactics, weapons they had never seen before. They had been preparing for this war much longer than anyone realized. As the fleet made final preparations, a junior officer approached with a nervous expression. "Princess, there are additional reports. They are attacking civilian targets in neutral space, human refugee settlements." Frowned. Why would they target humans? We are not even in conflict with them. "Unknown, Princess, but the casualty numbers are high, entire colonies destroyed." She dismissed the officer and continued her preparations. It was unfortunate but not her concern. She had orders to follow. That evening, she held a command briefing in the main conference room. Her senior officers attended, reviewing tactical plans and intelligence reports. Sat in the corner, as he sometimes did. She had stopped ordering him to stay away from these meetings. He never spoke or interfered, so his presence did not matter. But when she mentioned the attacks on human settlements, stood up. "Which colonies?" His voice cut through the conversation. The room went quiet. Officers turned to stare at him, felt a flash of irritation. "That is not relevant to our mission." "Which colonies?" repeated, and there was something in his tone that made her pause. She pulled up the intelligence report. New station, the agricultural settlements, port, and several smaller outposts. All human refugee communities established after the border wars. Went very still. The change in him was subtle but noticeable. He seemed to grow heavier somehow, more solid. "I need to speak with Earth Command." Almost laughed. "You do not have clearance for military communications." "Then give it to me." Several officers made sounds of protest. One actually stood up, hand on his weapon, but held up a hand for silence. She studied carefully. This was not the quiet, gentle man who tended his garden and helped repair crews. This was someone else. "Why?" she asked. "Those are my people dying. I need to make a call." Against every regulation and her own better judgment, authorized a secured communication line. She told herself she would terminate the call the moment he said anything suspicious. Stood nearby, ready to intervene if needed. Sat at the communication terminal and entered a code. The connection took several seconds longer than normal, routing through multiple encrypted channels. When someone finally answered, it was just a voice. "Identification," the voice said. Spoke a series of numbers and words that meant nothing to. But she watched the communication officer's face go pale. "Please hold," the voice said, now sounding uncertain. Another voice came on after a moment. This one was older, with authority. "It has been a long time, Ghost. What do you need?" Ghost felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Full authorization," said calmly, "and tell the remaining night guard to prepare for deployment." A long pause. Are you certain? The council was very clear about the terms of your retirement. If you do this, there is no going back. The terms are broken, said. The made sure of that. Authorization code Shadow 7. Another pause. Then the voice said quietly, confirmed. Welcome back, Commander. The line went dead, stood and turned to face. Every officer in the room was staring at him now. Several had drawn weapons. Commander, said slowly. I need to be on the ships heading to the outer rim, said, and I need you to trust me. Trust you? I do not even know who you are. Took a breath. I know, and I am sorry for that. But if you want to save your people and mine, you will give me a battalion and let me do what I was trained to do. Should have ordered his arrest immediately. Should have locked him in the brig and contacted Earth to demand answers. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way her officers were reacting. Several of the older ones, veterans of campaigns against human forces, were staring at with expressions of recognition and fear. She pulled up his personnel file on her personal tablet, the same thin file she had reviewed before, but now she looked at it with different eyes. No records before age 25. Psychological evaluation with a single red-flagged line. Subject demonstrates exceptional emotional regulation under extreme stress scenarios. She looked back at, explain now. He sat down slowly and suddenly he looked tired, very tired. Earth had a problem 20 years ago. Our colonies were being raided. Ships disappeared. Enemies tested our borders constantly. We did not have the numbers or technology to fight normal wars. So the military created something different. Small teams of specialists who could do the work of entire fleets. Special forces, said, his hand still on his weapon. Beyond that, said, we were trained in every combat discipline humanity knew, then pushed past normal limits. Strategy, psychology, xenobiology, infiltration, engineering. We learned to see patterns others missed, to find the weak points in any enemy. They called us Night Guard. The room was absolutely silent now. I commanded Unit 7 for 8 years, continued. We operated in deep black. No official records, no oversight, no rules beyond completing the mission. We did things that kept humanity alive but cost us everything else. When the war with you ended, the Earth Council decided we were too dangerous for peacetime. We were given a choice: accept new identities and disappear, or be eliminated as security risks. And the marriage, asked quietly, was supposed to be my punishment, a symbol, the weapon turned into decoration. He met her eyes. I accepted because I was tired of killing, but I cannot stand by while my people burn. So I am asking you, Princess, will you let me be what I was, just one more time? Stood and walked to the window looking out at the stars. Her mind raced through possibilities. This could be a lie, an elaborate deception. But the way Earth Command had responded, the authorization codes, the fear in her officers' eyes, it was too detailed to be false. If I agree, she said slowly, what do you need? A single battalion. Give me your most expendable unit, the one you expect to lose anyway, and give me 12 hours before the main fleet engages. That is suicide. They have fortified every position in the outer rim. I know, said simply. She turned back to him. And if you fail, if this is all just a lie, then you will have lost nothing you are not already willing to lose. Stepped forward. Princess, this is insane, we should arrest him. But was thinking about the reports from the outer rim, the casualties, the failed conventional assaults, the seemed to know every tactic before they used it. Maybe insane was exactly what they needed. You will take the 3rd Battalion, she said. 2,000 soldiers, 36 ships, outdated equipment. Commander will accompany you and report everything you do. If I suspect betrayal for even a moment, he has orders to kill you. Do you accept these terms? Nodded, I do. Then prepare your forces. We jump to the outer rim in 6 hours. As the officers filed out of the room, many throwing suspicious glances at caught his arm. This ghost they called you. What did you do to earn that name? Looked at her with those calm eyes that she now realized had always been watching, always calculating. I made humanity's enemies afraid of the dark. Later that night, could not sleep. She reviewed everything she knew about the border wars between humanity and the Empire. There had been stories, rumors really, dismissed as propaganda. Entire outposts found abandoned, their crews vanished without a trace. Command ships that suffered sudden system failures at critical moments. Tactical plans that seemed to leak before they were even implemented. At the time, intelligence had assumed human spies and good luck. But what if it had been something else? What if it had been teams of ghosts, moving through their ranks unseen? She pulled up combat reports from 18 months ago. A supply depot attack where the defending force had outnumbered the attackers 5-1, but had somehow been defeated with 0 human casualties. She had read that report before and thought it was exaggerated. Now she wondered. The next morning, she watched from the bridge as battalion prepared to deploy. The 3rd Battalion was exactly what she had described. Young soldiers with limited combat experience, older veterans who had been sidelined due to injuries or disciplinary issues, and outdated ships held together more by prayer than engineering. But as they boarded their vessels, she noticed something strange. Many of the soldiers greeted by name, not his current name. They called him Commander. They moved around him with practiced ease, like soldiers who had served together before. Noticed it too. He handpicked these troops, he said quietly. These are not random assignments, these are his people. From the border wars. Probably, veterans who knew him before the retirement, he called them back. The fleet jumped to hyperspace together, but this battalion split off halfway to the target system, following a different trajectory. Watched them go and wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her military career. Or maybe, just maybe, she had finally started to see clearly. The outer rim was burning when the 3rd Fleet arrived. Forces had established fortified positions across 17 systems, using a combination of their own technology and captured equipment. Intelligence reported that they had been planning this invasion for at least 5 years. Launched the first assault with 6 battle groups. They were ready. They had studied tactics thoroughly and prepared devastating ambushes at every jump point. Within 2 hours, lost 12 ships and over 3,000 soldiers. She ordered a tactical withdrawal to regroup. Her officers gathered in the command center, faces grim. The casualty reports kept coming in. They were worse than anyone had predicted. "The know our playbook," said, his jaw tight. "Every standard maneuver, every formation. They counter before we even complete the attack." Studied the tactical displays looking for any advantage. There was none. "We need to change our approach, something they will not expect." Like sending a suicide battalion to attack their strongest position, said with bitter humor. Had almost forgotten about. His battalion had split off hours ago, heading toward an asteroid base that served as a major command center. The base was protected by heavy shields, automated defense platforms, and a garrison of 5,000 soldiers. Every tactical model predicted complete failure. "Have we heard anything from the 3rd Battalion?" she asked. The communications officer checked his board. "No communication since they broke formation, Princess. Maintaining radio silence as ordered." Shook his head. "They are probably dead already or running away." But something made pull up the long-range sensors. She adjusted the frequency, scanning for any sign of combat near the asteroid base. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then the display flickered with heat signatures. "Get me a visual," she ordered. The screen shifted, showing grainy footage from a surveillance satellite near the target. At first, could not understand what she was seeing. Ships were moving toward the asteroid base, but not in any formation she recognized. They split into 16 separate groups, each following seemingly random flight paths. "What are they doing?" one of her officers asked. Watched closely. The defense platforms around the asteroid were firing, creating overlapping fields of destruction. Nothing should be able to pass through, but ships were threading between the shots, moving through gaps that appeared for only fractions of a second. "He is reading their firing patterns," said quietly, "without computers, just by watching." The ships reached the asteroid and scattered to different approach vectors. Some disappeared into what looked like solid rock faces. Others landed in areas marked as unstable and dangerous. The surveillance feed could not track all of them. Then the feed cut out completely. For 30 minutes there was nothing. No communication, no visual, no data. Found herself gripping the edge of her command console. Stood beside her, silent and tense. Every officer in the command center watched the blank screens, waiting. Then the asteroid base's defense systems shut down, all of them, simultaneously. "Status report," demanded. The communications officer was frantically checking channels. "Princess, I am receiving a transmission from the asteroid. It is using military codes." "Put it through." His voice came over the speakers, sounding oddly shaken. "Third Fleet Command, this is Commander. The asteroid base is secured. Request immediate support for prisoner processing. We have over 4,000 soldiers in custody." Stared at the communication panel. "Casualties." "None on our side, Princess. Some injuries but no deaths." The command center erupted in confused murmurs, silenced them with a gesture. "Confirm that report, Commander." "Confirmed, 0 fatality. The base is ours." It took 3 hours to send support ships and verify what had happened. When the reports came back, she read them twice because they seemed impossible. His battalion had infiltrated through abandoned mining tunnels that should have been collapsed. They had moved through the base using paths that avoided all major defensive positions. They had turned their own security systems against them, sealing blast doors at precise moments, cutting life support to specific sections, and creating confusion that looked like system malfunctions. The garrison had surrendered after realizing they were fighting ghosts. Enemies that appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and vanished before reinforcements could respond. When returned to the flagship, summoned him immediately to her private office. He entered looking tired but unharmed. "Tell me everything," she said. Sat down heavily. "Princess, I have been a soldier for 23 years. I have fought in 47 major engagements. I thought I understood combat." He paused. "I was wrong." "Explain." "Does not fight like us. He does not think like us. When we approached the asteroid, I expected him to order a frontal assault or try to overwhelm a weak point. Instead, he had every pilot study the defense platforms for 2 hours, just watching the patterns. Then he told them exactly when to move, not approximately, exactly, down to the second." Rubbed his face. "We entered through a mining tunnel marked as collapsed on every chart, knew it was passable. When I asked how, he said he had studied the geological survey from 18 years ago and calculated that the collapse would have stabilized in a specific configuration. He was right. And inside the base, he had memorized the entire layout from stolen intelligence reports, not just the main corridors, every service tunnel, every maintenance shaft, every emergency exit. His soldiers moved like they had trained in that exact facility for months. They communicated with hand signals I did not recognize. They set up ambushes that forced the into kill zones without firing a single shot until the trap was perfect. Looked at with something like fear. When we cornered a group of officers, I watched fight. Princess, he disarmed the first soldier using a technique I have never seen. He used the seized weapon to kill the second. He dropped the third and fourth before they could react. It took maybe 4 seconds. Then he just stepped over the bodies and continued to the command center like nothing had happened. Did he say anything, give any explanation? One of his soldiers, a woman named, told me something. Hesitated. She said the ghost sees war differently than we do. To him, Every battle is just a puzzle. He finds the perfect solution faster than anyone else can find a good one. Dismissed and sat alone in her office thinking. She pulled up the intelligence data captured from the asteroid base. The files were extensive. They had detailed records of their attack plans, supply lines, communication protocols. Everything the Third Fleet needed to turn this war around. But there was something else. Files marked with human designations. She opened them and felt her blood run cold. They had been specifically targeting locations tied to something called Project Sanctuary. It was a classified Earth program that had relocated survivors of humanity's worst conflicts. The settlements they destroyed were not random. They were chosen because they housed families of Night Guard operatives. This was revenge. They had not forgotten the ghosts who had haunted them during previous conflicts. They wanted to hurt the ones who had hurt them. Understood then why had abandoned his retirement. This was not just about protecting civilians. This was personal. She found him later in the captured base, coordinating the transfer of prisoners. He looked the same as always. Calm, quiet, unremarkable. But now she saw the truth beneath. This was a man who had orchestrated one of the most complex military operations she had ever witnessed, and he acted like it was routine. "Your report was impressive," she said. He nodded, "Thank you. You are not just a soldier. Elite operatives do not move like you did. So what are you really?" Was quiet for a long moment. Around them, soldiers moved prisoners and secured equipment. Finally, he said, "Earth did not create the Night Guard to fight battles. They created us to end wars, permanently." How? "We were trained to see the invisible connections that hold enemy forces together. Command structures, supply lines, communication networks, morale. Then we learned how to sever those connections. A single Night Guard team could cripple planetary defenses, walk into enemy command centers and walk out after regimes collapsed. We were not soldiers. We were war itself, distilled into human form." Felt a chill, and the council just retired people like you. They were afraid with good reason. His voice dropped. "Power like this does not turn off easily, so they gave us a choice. Accept new lives or die. Most of us chose to live. If I ask you to continue doing this, what will it cost you?" Looked at her. "Everything I built trying to be someone else, but those people dying out there, they are worth it." Made a decision. "I am giving you operational control of the 3rd Fleet's Special Forces divisions, full authority to conduct missions as you see fit. I want 12 more Night Guard operatives brought out of retirement. The Earth Council will resist. I do not care. I will contact them myself. This war is killing thousands every day. If you can end it faster, then that is what we will do." Something flickered across his face. Relief maybe, or sadness. "Understood, Princess." As he walked away to begin preparations, felt the weight of her decision. She had just unleashed something terrifying on them. But she had also seen the casualty reports from conventional assaults. If could save lives by being what he was, then she would accept the consequences. She just hoped she was making the right choice. Over the next 6 weeks, the war changed completely. Teams operated in darkness, striking at command centers, supply depots, and communication hubs. They appeared without warning, destroyed their targets with surgical precision, and vanished before anyone could respond. They began to panic. Their soldiers reported seeing ghosts in the corridors. Equipment failed at critical moments. Orders became confused and contradictory. Supply lines collapsed even though they were supposedly secure. Watched the transformation from her flagship. She had fought wars the traditional way for her entire career. She understood honor and direct combat, but methods were different. They were effective, but they felt wrong somehow, like cheating. One evening she found him in the observation deck, staring at distant stars. His hands were shaking slightly. A delayed stress response, she realized. "How long can you keep doing this?" she asked. "As long as I have to. but his voice was not as steady as before. She sat beside him. For the first time since their forced marriage, they talked as equals. He told her about missions that still haunted him, decisions that saved millions but cost him friends, sanity, peace. She told him about the weight of royal expectations, the loneliness of command, the fear that she was nothing more than a weapon in royal clothing. "I did not want to be your enemy," she admitted, "but I did not know how to be anything else." "You were never my enemy," said quietly, "just someone caught in the same trap I was." Something shifted between them in that moment. Not love, not yet, but recognition, understanding. Two people who had sacrificed everything for duty, finally seeing each other clearly. The war was turning in their favor, but they were not finished. 8 weeks after began his operations, intelligence intercepted a coded transmission from deep in space. The encryption was complex, but Earth's cryptographers broke it within days. The message was simple and terrifying. The High Command was deploying their final weapon. Gathered her senior officers in the command center. The intelligence analyst, a young named, presented the findings with visible nervousness. "They have constructed a kinetic bombardment platform," explained, displaying technical schematics. "It uses captured rail gun technology combined with their own power systems. The platform is designed to fire metal rods at near-light speed toward planetary targets." Leaned forward. "Where is it aimed?" Hesitated. "The princess. If they fire this weapon, it will cause extinction-level damage. Billions will die." The room erupted in angry voices. Officers demanded immediate action, calling for the entire fleet to return home. Raised her hand for silence, but her mind was already racing through tactical options. If they abandoned the Outer Rim campaign, they would reclaim everything they had lost. But if they stayed, they might be destroyed. Stood quietly in his usual corner. He had been studying the intelligence report on his tablet. Now he looked up and caught eye. Something in his expression made her stomach drop. "There is more, is there not?" she said too. The analyst nodded miserably. "Yes, Princess. We detected a second fleet movement, much larger than the bombardment platform. They are heading toward Sol system." The room went silent, understood immediately. The bombardment platform was a distraction. The real attack was aimed at Earth. She looked at, his face had gone very still. "How many ships in the Earth strike force?" 230 capital vessels, said. 400 support craft. It is 3 times larger than anything we have seen them deploy. And Earth's defenses? Minimal. Most of their fleet is scattered across the Outer Rim, supporting our operations. They have maybe 50 ships near Sol system. They cannot stop a force this size. Set down his tablet and walked to the center of the room. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but everyone could hear the tension underneath. "Princess, I request permission to take half the Third Fleet and intercept the attack on Earth." Had been expecting this. That would leave me with insufficient forces to defend the... "I know. You are asking me to choose between my people and yours. I am asking you to split our forces and fight on 2 fronts. It is the only way both survive." Slammed his fist on the table. "This is insane. We cannot divide our fleet now. The logical choice is to defend the first, then reinforce Earth if there is time." "There will not be time," said quietly. "By the time we destroy the bombardment platform and reach Earth, the fleet will have already attacked. Millions will die." "Then millions die," said harshly. "We must prioritize our own empire." Saw's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. He just looked at her, waiting for her decision. And in that moment she realized what he was doing. He was not demanding, not threatening to abandon them. He was giving her the choice and accepting whatever she decided. This man, who had been treated as a trophy and an ornament who owed the nothing, was still asking permission instead of simply leaving. She thought about the past few months, watching him work, seeing how his soldiers trusted him absolutely. learning about the sacrifices he had made and the nightmares he carried. He had come back from retirement not for glory or revenge, but because innocent people were dying and he could not stand by. "We split the fleet," she said firmly. Several officers protested immediately, looked at her like she had lost her mind, but stood and faced them all. They want us to choose. They want us to show that this alliance is meaningless when tested. If we abandon Earth now, we prove they are right. We prove that we only care about ourselves. That peace was always a lie. She turned to, "You will take battle groups 7 through 12 and intercept the fleet. I will take the remaining forces and destroy the bombardment platform." "Princess, that gives you less than half our strength," argued. "I know, but I have learned some things from watching our ghost fight." She allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the unconventional approach is the correct one. Stepped forward. It was the first time he had used her name without the title. "If I take those forces to Earth, I may not be able to help you with the bombardment platform. You will be facing overwhelming odds alone." "I know," she said, "but I have fought overwhelming odds before, have you?" He smiled faintly, "Once or twice." "Then go save your people, Commander. I will save mine." The room erupted in activity as officers began coordinating the fleet split, but caught arm before he could leave. They stepped into a side corridor, away from the chaos. "Why did you not just demand this?" she asked. "You have leverage. You could have threatened to stop fighting for us, to leave entirely." "Because that is not who I am," said simply. "I fight to protect people, not to force them into choices they do not want to make." Studied his face, really looked at him, maybe for the first time since they married. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried, but also the certainty. This was a man who knew exactly who he was and what he stood for, even when it hurt. "When this is over," she said quietly, "come back to me. Because I think I am starting to understand who you really are and I want to know more." Looked surprised. "I am just a soldier, a killer. There is not much more to know." "That is not true." She stepped closer. "You tend gardens. You help repair crews solve engineering problems. You talk young soldiers through their fears. You are not just a weapon. You are a person who has been forced to do terrible things but who still chooses kindness when he can." "I am not a good man," he said. "Maybe not, but you are a good person trying to be better. That matters." For a moment they just stood there, then nodded. "I will come back, I promise." The fleet separated 6 hours later, stood on the bridge of the Eternal Talon, watching as 12 battle groups broke formation and accelerated toward Earth. She felt fear settle in her chest, not for herself but for him, for what he was about to face. Stood beside her, his expression dark. "I hope you know what you are doing, Princess." "So do I," she admitted. The bombardment platform was located in the nebula, a region of dense gas clouds and radiation that interfered with sensors. The perfect hiding place. Its reduced fleet approached carefully, using sensor drones to map the area. They found the platform exactly where intelligence predicted. It was massive, easily 5 times larger than any ship in the fleet. They had built it using materials stripped from conquered colonies. It was ugly and brutal, but effective. Surrounding it were defensive stations, mine fields, and a protecting fleet of over 100 warships. They had expected that to come with everything they had, but had arrived with half that force. Her officers looked at the tactical display with grim faces. "We cannot win this conventionally," said. "Then we will not fight conventionally," said. She pulled up a battle plan she had been working on for the past 6 hours. It was based on things she had learned watching operate. Unpredictable movements, striking at unexpected locations, using the enemy's strengths against them. "They are defending the platform, expecting us to attack it directly, so we will not attack the platform at all, not at first." She highlighted 3 supply ships on the periphery of their formation. "These vessels are carrying fuel and ammunition. We hit them hard and fast, then scatter. The explosions will create chaos in their defensive grid. And then asked, then we use that chaos. Small strike teams will penetrate their formation while they are confused. We target their command ships, not the platform. Once their fleet loses coordination, we destroy the bombardment weapon at our leisure. It was risky. It required precision timing and perfect execution, exactly the kind of plan would make. Smiled grimly, you have been learning from the human. I have, agreed. Let us hope I learned well. Meanwhile, thousands of light-years away, faced his own battle. The fleet heading toward Earth was enormous. His forces were outnumbered 3-1, maybe worse. His officers looked at the tactical displays with barely concealed fear, but had fought against worse odds before. He studied the formation carefully, looking for the patterns. Every military force had patterns, habits they fell into without realizing. He just needed to find them. His second-in-command stood beside him. She had served with him during the border wars and trusted him completely. "What do you see?" she asked quietly. "They are overconfident," said. "They think they have already won. Look at their formation. It is perfect for overwhelming a defensive position but vulnerable to attacks from unexpected vectors." "What vectors? We are directly between them and Earth." Smiled slightly. "We are now, but we will not be when the battle starts." He issued orders that seemed insane. The fleet would split into 4 groups and accelerate to maximum speed in different directions. They would circle around the fleet, using the gravity wells of nearby planets to slingshot into attack positions. It would take hours and burn fuel they might need later. But when they realized what was happening, it would be too late to respond. As his ships accelerated away, thought about, wondered if she was fighting yet, if she was safe. He had spent months with her, living as her unwanted husband. Now, faced with possibly dying in battle, he realized he had grown to care about her, not just as an ally but as a person. He hoped she would survive what was coming, because he wanted to see her again, wanted to talk more, wanted to learn who she was beneath the armor and royal protocols. He wanted a future. For the first time in years, he actually wanted to live beyond the next mission. That thought both terrified and motivated him, as his fleet raced toward the largest battle of his life. The battle for the began with fire. Led her reduced fleet into the nebula at full combat speed. The defenders detected them immediately and scrambled to battle positions, exactly as she predicted. "All ships focus fire on designated supply vessels," she ordered. "Maximum weapons. Do not hold back." Her fleet concentrated all firepower on 3 targets. The supply ships exploded spectacularly, their fuel reserves creating massive fireballs that expanded through the defensive grid. Secondary explosions rippled outward as nearby ships were caught in the blast radius. The formation broke apart as captains tried to avoid the spreading destruction. In that moment of chaos, ordered the scatter. "All battle groups execute dispersal pattern Delta. Engage at will." Her fleet split into 6 separate formations, each attacking from different angles. The defenders tried to respond, but their command structure was already fragmenting. Without clear orders, individual captains made their own decisions, creating gaps in the defensive perimeter. Personally led a strike team of 12 ships directly into the heart of the formation. It was insane by conventional standards, but she had learned that sometimes insanity was just another word for unexpected. Commanded one of her escort ships, Princess, 3 heavy cruisers moving to intercept. "Ignore them, focus on the command ship." They punched through the defensive line, taking heavy fire but keeping formation. Flagship shuddered as weapons struck the shields, but they held. The command ship loomed ahead, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. "Fire all forward batteries," ordered. The concentrated barrage tore through the command ship's shields and ripped into its hull. Explosions rippled along its length. Within seconds, it was listing and venting atmosphere. Without their command vessel, the fleet's coordination collapsed completely. Individual ships fought bravely but without strategy. Forces, smaller but now more organized, systematically dismantled the defensive positions. 2 hours after the battle began, the bombardment platform stood undefended, ordered all remaining ships to concentrate fire. The massive weapon tried to activate its engines, to flee or at least fire one shot at the distant. But it was too slow, too big. Its fleet pounded it with everything they had until the platform broke apart, its deadly payload of kinetic rods tumbling harmlessly into the nebula. Stood on her bridge, breathing hard, barely believing they had won. Her ships were damaged, her casualties were heavy, but they had succeeded. The was safe. "Status report," she ordered. His voice came through, rough with exhaustion. "Fleet combat effectiveness at 40%. Heavy damage across all battle groups. But we won, Princess. We actually won." Allowed herself a moment of relief. Then her thoughts turned to, was he still alive? Had Earth survived? She opened a communication channel to Earth Command. "This is Princess of the Third Fleet, requesting status update on Sol system defense." The response took several minutes. When it came, the voice sounded shaken. "Princess, this is Earth Central Command. The fleet reached Sol system 4 hours ago. The battle is still in progress." "What is the situation?" A long pause. "Unknown. Commander's forces engage the enemy, but we have lost contact with most of his battle groups. The last transmission was 30 minutes ago. Heavy fighting near the outer planets." Felt her chest tighten. "I am coming there. Prepare your medical facilities and support ships." She ordered her fleet to begin emergency repairs and set course for Earth at maximum possible speed. It would take 8 hours to reach Sol system, even pushing the damaged engines to their limits. Those were the longest 8 hours of her life. Meanwhile, in the cold darkness near Neptune's orbit, was fighting the battle he had been born for. His plan had worked initially. By splitting his forces and attacking from 4 different vectors, he had caught the fleet unprepared. But the enemy numbers were overwhelming. For every ship his forces destroyed, there were 2 more to take its place. His flagship, a captured heavy cruiser he had named Silent Shadow, was heavily damaged. Half the crew was dead or wounded. Life support was failing in 3 sections, but they were still fighting. Crawled across the bridge, blood streaming from a head wound. "Commander, we have lost battle groups 9 and 11. 10 is down to 3 ships. We cannot hold them." Studied the tactical display. They were pushing toward Earth with relentless determination. His remaining forces had slowed them down but not stopped them. If they broke through, Earth's minimal defenses would last maybe an hour. He made a decision. "Order all remaining ships to focus on the command vessel. Everything we have left. That leaves Earth's approach undefended. The rest of their fleet will get through." "I know," stood steadying himself against a damaged console. "But if we can take out their high commander, their fleet will break apart like it did at the asteroid base. They are too rigid, too dependent on central command. Kill the head, the body dies." Stared at him. "You want to ram them, don't you?" He smiled faintly. "It is the most efficient solution." "You will die." "Maybe, but Earth will live." Wanted to argue, but she knew that expression. The ghost had made his decision. Nothing would change it. She saluted. "It has been an honor, Commander." "The honor was mine, Captain. Now get to an escape pod." "After you." They both knew neither would leave. Instead, they worked together, evacuating the remaining crew and setting the ship systems for a collision course. The Silent Shadow would become a kinetic weapon, just like the bombardment platform they had tried to use. Sat in the command chair one last time and opened a communication channel to all remaining ships. "This is Commander to all forces. Continue engaging the enemy fleet. Do not follow my trajectory. I am going to remove their leadership. After that, press the attack. They will break." He closed the channel before anyone could respond. Then he engaged the engines at full power, accelerating directly toward the massive command ship. The flagship of High Commander, the brilliant strategist who had orchestrated this entire invasion, saw him coming. They tried to change course to bring weapons to bear, but the silent shadow was moving too fast. It struck like a meteor, punching through shields and armor. The explosion was visible from Earth. Both ships tore themselves apart in a fireball that briefly Neptune. Debris scattered across thousands of kilometers. Somewhere in that wreckage, ejected in an escape pod seconds before impact. The blast waved through the pod, spinning into the darkness. Everything went black. When he woke, had no idea how much time had passed. His pod's life support was failing. His left arm was gone, burned away in the explosion. His body screamed with pain from burns and broken bones. But through the pod's small window he could see Earth, still whole, still beautiful. He had succeeded. "Commander," a voice crackled through the damaged radio. "Commander, do you receive?" He tried to respond, but his throat was too dry. After several attempts he managed a whisper. "Here. Hang on, we are coming for you." The next few hours were fragmented memories. Rescue ships finding his pod, medical teams working frantically, someone telling him the fleet had indeed broken apart after losing their commander, just as he predicted. Earth was safe. He drifted in and out of consciousness, vaguely aware of surgeries and medication. When he finally woke fully, he was in a medical facility on Luna. His left arm had been replaced with a mechanical prosthetic. Bandages covered most of his body. Was sitting beside his bed. She looked exhausted but alive. "You survived," said. "You sound disappointed," she replied with a weak smile. "How many did we lose?" Her smile faded. 73 ships, over 12,000 soldiers, but Earth stands. "You did it, Commander." Closed his eyes. "Too many dead, always too many." "There is someone here to see you," said gently. Before he could ask who, the door opened. Walked in, still wearing her battle-damaged armor. She looked tired and worried, but her eyes lit up when she saw him awake. "You kept your promise," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "So did you," managed. "I heard about the bombardment platform, very impressive." Sat beside his bed. "I had a good teacher." They were quiet for a moment, then took his remaining hand carefully. "The war is ending. They are requesting peace negotiations. Both our peoples are safe. But the High Council is afraid of you now. Some want to execute you. Others want to make you a weapon they control." "And you," he asked, "what do you want?" Looked at him. This man who had been nothing but a political ornament in her eyes, who had revealed himself as something far more dangerous and far more noble than she ever imagined. "I want you to stop fighting," she said. "I want you to rest. And when you are healed, I want to know if there is anything left of you that is not made of scars and duty. Because if there is, I would like to meet him properly." Stared at her, surprised. Then slowly he laughed. It was a genuine sound, something she had never heard from him. "I would like that too," he said. "But I am not a war god. I never was. I was just someone who could not stand by while people suffered." "That is everything," she said quietly. The peace treaty was signed 6 months later. To their original borders, chastened and depleted. The Empire and Earth established formal diplomatic relations, and the marriage that had begun as a symbol of subjugation became something real. Retired again, this time on his own terms. He and requested assignment to joint peacekeeping operations, working together to prevent conflicts before they exploded into war. It was not easy. There were still tensions, still old hatreds that needed healing. But they faced it together. Slowly, carefully, they built something that was never part of any treaty, a genuine partnership, then friendship, then, eventually, love. On their first anniversary, they stood together on the observation deck of a neutral station, looking at the stars. "Do you regret it?" asked, becoming the ghost again. Thought for a long time. "I regret the cost, but not the choice. Those people are alive because of what we did. That matters. And if it happens again, if peace fails." He looked at her steadily. "Then we face it together, not as weapons, as people who know war well enough to prevent it." Smiled and took his hand. "I think I can accept that." They stood together, two soldiers who had learned that true strength was not found in violence, but in knowing when to fight and when to choose peace. The galaxy was not perfect, probably never would be, but they had proven that enemies could become allies, that weapons could choose to be people instead. And in the shadows of the galaxy, the remaining Night Guard operatives quietly returned to their civilian lives. They tended gardens, fixed machines, taught children, and tried to forget the things they had done. But they all knew the truth. If the darkness ever returned, if innocent people were threatened again, the ghost would answer. But for now, the war god rested, and in resting, he finally learned how to live.